Good morning, folks. I'm back out here at Dad's shop again. I'm gonna do another lantern video today. I've got this, they called this model a L220. It's the Coleman Slant is what their nickname was. And they call it that because the generator sits in there at an angle, and you can see that the handle for the knob is up underneath. They were kind of an odd little lantern, only made for a few years. I've had this one running before. When I bought it, the pump didn't work on it. It didn't have any glass in it, and I just stuck a made in China globe in it for a while. And when I was working on the pump, I used brake parts cleaner. I often spray brake parts cleaner in to try to get the pump check valves freed up, and I eventually did. But I didn't realize until after I got it all broke loose and working on this and another lantern that the brake parts cleaner I was using was non-flammable brake parts cleaner. It was chlorine based, and I let all that brake parts cleaner just go through the check valve and in with the fuel, and when I was thinking that it was regular brake parts cleaner that would burn, I didn't worry about it. I've done that on other lanterns and just light it up and burn the fuel through it, and it burns the brake parts cleaner, the little bit that's in there. But that chlorine based brake parts cleaner absolutely destroyed the generators on a couple of my lanterns. It just ate up the metal that the generators were made out of. So I have bought from oldcolemanparts.com, I bought a reproduction Q99 generator. They're really good quality. I think once it's on the lamp, you wouldn't even be able to tell, or on the lantern in this case, wouldn't be able to tell that it is a reproduction. And I've also bought a reproduction mica globe for this from Rob Butts. It's very well made. I just got it a couple days ago and was waiting to make this video after I got this mica globe. So I'm going to take this crusty old L220 slant lantern and put some new parts in it. First I'm going to go find the ball nut that just rolled and fell through one of the holes in the table. There we go. And this poor old vent is in rough shape too. I might need to look around at some of our parts lanterns out in the side building and see if we got one that's a little bit better shape than that, but it's definitely seen its better days. I'm going to get the camera over here for a second so I can show you a little closer what that brake parts cleaner did to everything in there. Here's a closer look of the, for some reason I'm thinking that's a W55 is what they called it, but I can't remember for sure. But it just absolutely ate that up. And then the top of the burner assembly, I'm probably going to end up breaking the mantles because I'm going to get some steel wool or a Scotch-Brite pad or something and try to scuff all that loose stuff off of there anyway while I've got it apart here. You can even see down in the bottom there flakes of it that just flaked off. So if you use brake parts cleaner or carburetor cleaner for that matter to get your pump or anything on these unstuck, make sure you don't get the non-flammable stuff that has chlorine in it, because it is really hard on the parts on these lanterns. Well, I'm going to go ahead and just take these mantles off because I want to clean as much of that off there as I can. So I might as well just get them out of the way. Throw those on the floor. Dad can sweep them up next time he sweeps the shop. Start with the screwdriver on the pocket knife and scrape some of the crust off of here that brake parts cleaner. I don't know what it did, but it certainly reacted with stuff and made just a hard crust and flaky and made a mess out of stuff. Plus, when it was burning, it stunk so bad you couldn't even be around the lantern. I ended up dumping the fuel out of the 2 lanterns that I did that to, putting fresh fuel in them. They still stunk, so I dumped that fuel out too and filled them up with fresh fuel and ran that tank of fuel through each one of them. Finally got it to where they don't completely, I feel like the other lantern that I've got, you still can kind of smell that smell a little bit when you light it up. Still didn't put anything underneath the leg of that wobbly table. Dad stuck a screwdriver under it the other day when I was filming out here, but he, so I was just going to say he probably picked it up after he tripped on it. Scraped off as much as I could scrape off, and then cleaned off with the Scotch-Brite all the loose stuff I could, and used some brake parts cleaner that is flammable and doesn't have chlorine in it to spray everything down and clean it off. Now I'm gonna take the valve out of here. This valve comes apart. You loosen up that little jam nut. Now I need to loosen my cap. I got fuel leaking out too. They'll build pressure in the fountain just from wiggling them around. Anyhow, you loosen up this little jam nut right there and then pull out this little keeper piece. And then your whole valve will drop right out the bottom and you can get your whole fuel valve. I'm gonna spray a little bit of carb cleaner through that too, since it was pointing up in the air when I was cleaning all that rust and debris off of there. Alright, I sprayed that out with some good carb cleaner, and now we'll put this new reproduction generator in there. They're easier to get in if you just go ahead and take that valve out of there, or at least have it loose so that you can move it around when you're putting the generator in there. I think I want to put the generator in that way if it'll fit, so that the loop part of it is between the air tube and the generator, but I'm not positive it will fit in there that way. Get my hands out of the way. I don't know if the camera can see it very well, but I don't know if putting it that way, if there's going to be enough room for the mantle to fit in there. I'm afraid the mantle might not have enough room right there, so maybe I'll have to flip it around the other way. Which is not a big deal. Loosely snug everything up. Looks like it'll fit in there just fine that way. I think that the mantles will still throw plenty of heat to keep the generator hot that way, and it'll be easy to get a match in through the little match light door on the mica and get a match in right underneath the loop on there to preheat it. So we'll go ahead and tighten all this back up. You gotta make sure you get the get this valve assembly in there square and straight, I always wiggle it around a little bit, make sure it's properly seated in, because it just is a tapered piece that fits into a tapered hole, and then this little set screw just pushes it in there tightly, and that's what makes your seal. So if you don't get it in there straight, it will leak fuel when you get ready to light it up. Try to hold that so that it's straight in there. The fount on this lantern would probably shine up pretty nice, but I kind of like them looking like they are still old and crusty. Plus, someday in the future, when I'm gone and don't have this anymore, somebody can still find one that's original if they want to polish it. That is probably tight enough. I'll check it for leaks when I get ready to light it up. I don't think I said at the beginning of the video, but this one is 9/11 on the date stamp, which means it's the 11th month of 29. So it's a November of 1929 lantern. All right, I'll trim my strings off here. We'll burn these mantles in. We'll see if this new generator works and light this up, and then we'll put the new mica chimney on there. Put those strings down there with those mantles that I ripped off of here. Gives Dad something to do. He can sweep the floor once a week or so out here. Alright. I'll go ahead and close my fuel cap. Go ahead and pump the pressure up. That way after I get these mantles burned in, oh, I'm already leaking. Already leaking. The valve was not shut on this, and I'm leaking fuel. I don't know if you can see it on the nut right there, so I'm gonna have to get that tighter, which I already felt like I had it fairly tight. Unless that fuel was coming from the top and running down. Maybe it was.
Just flooded it.
Yeah, maybe that fuel ran down from the top, because I feel like I already had this pretty darn tight.
Probably just flooded it.
It certainly doesn't seem excessively loose. I got a little more out of it, but not much. So I'll bet that came from the top and ran down. I hope it did anyway. I can feel up there.
Do that with that loop in there.
Okay, I'll finish pumping it up, then we'll see what happens here. I had that valve open when I blew carb cleaner through it to make sure there was no chunks of that flaky stuff in there, and I didn't re-close it. Well, it'll burn off whatever fuel's there when I burn in these mantles, and then we'll see what happens when I open up the fuel valve. Give those a minute to finish burning in. There was a little fuel around there, but it all burned off. The directions with the lanterns that came with these said to use 2 matches and hold the matches underneath the loop of the generator to preheat that, and when they got burned down it would be warm enough to open up and light. So we'll just put the lighter underneath there for a minute. Well, there was already fuel in there because I have not opened the valve yet, so I still haven't opened the valve, but I feel like it might still be leaking down there at the bottom. There's a fair amount of flame coming out of there. So I am going to have to get that tighter, which means I'm going to have to... Yeah, it's definitely still trying to burn right there around the jam nut. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's going to have to be tighter than that, that's for sure. Oops. I'm going to get a pair of pliers to hold on to that with.
I have to clamp it on the vise.
Yeah, we could do that. I'll pause the camera and we'll turn around and clamp it in the vise that Dad made to hold that in place. Dad built this lantern vise. It's just a very simple vise, but it ought to work well. We've not used it yet. We just got a couple of boards that he cut so that the lantern will sit right down in there. And then it has tap rod that goes all the way through so that you can tighten it up nice and snug. I'm going to turn that a little bit so that the part that I have to tighten is facing more towards me. And then just get a wrench and snug up the nuts on the tap rod until the vise squeezes the fount tight enough to hold it still. It shouldn't have to be super tight. He's got belt material in there to grip it. Yeah, that seems like it works pretty good. And then if it feels like it was going to move around a little bit, you could get a second pair of vice grips. Clamp that side down just to give you a little bit more leverage. It's the first time we've used that. Alright, let's see if I can... Well, this is going to be interesting. The whole generator is wanting to turn. Good thing I didn't do this before I burned those mantle in. They're going to easily break now. Let's see here. See if I can get a small, that's the dirtiest, nastiest adjustable wrench that we've got out here. I don't know what that was being used for last. Wipe some of the crud out of there and see if I can use this to kind of hold on to the generator and hold it in the position that I want it to stay, and then tighten this down more. Ooh. Try to go a little more. I certainly Don't want to break anything. All right, I'll try relighting it again and see if it's still flaring up around the nut at the bottom of that generator. I'd say that's plenty of fuel in there. There we go. I'm getting a little bit of flame outside the manholes, but it seems like it's getting better as they're burning in here now. Alright, I'm going to pause the camera and flip everything back around to the other side where I can sit down. Okay, it's burning good now. We'll put the new mica chimney in there. Maybe I'll run up the side building real quick and look at some of the lanterns that we got out there that are not in working order and see if one of them's got a better lid than this. And there's nothing out there in our parts lanterns that have the same chimney that this one has, so we'll just put this one back on there for now. I'll have to keep an eye out and see if I can find one somewhere to replace that. There we go. This is 29, so this is a 96-year-old lantern with a new replacement mica and a new replacement Q99 generator in it. And it's back to life now. Dad's holding his hand up like he's got a question.
94.
He's right. He corrected my math. It's 94 years old, not 96 years old. Yeah, this is back to where it'll be a very reliable lantern now. Get it down, pump it up, and it'll light right up and be ready to use. Plus it just looks nice with the mica globe in there.